Hello everyone! A new year is upon us, and what a better way to start it than by playing a good old-fashioned Half-Life mod. Oops, I did it again. This will make more sense later on in the video. Now Half-Life, along with games like Doom, need no introduction when it comes to the modding community, and the fact that mods are still being made to this day is a testament to the game's long-lasting appeal. Today I will be looking into a mod called Delta Particles. And believe it or not, this might be the first Half-Life mod I've played that came out in recent times. I've mostly played and revisited mods that came out not long after Half-Life's release, so this mod was extra exciting to me. So let's dive in and check it out.
Hello.
Who are you again? Delta Particles was originally released in 2021 on ModDB, and has released multiple updates since then. Just recently in December of 2024, Delta Particles was released on Steam, along with many fun achievements, and what I assume is the most latest up-to-date version of the mod as well. As written in the mod's description, you take the role of Nick Farrell, a technical engineer in Delta Base, the complex that competes with Black Mesa in various research fields, including exploration of the border world, Xen, and weapon development. Due to accidental entanglement of two different experiments conducted at the same time, the infamous resonance cascade affects the Delta Base as well, bringing the hostile alien life forms which infest the facility very soon. Seems like Aperture Science isn't the only sketchy company competing with Black Mesa. Very early on, you get a good feel of Delta Base, and I love that it feels distinct to Black Mesa. The uniforms are different, the textures and level layout also feels familiar, but different enough that it doesn't just feel like an extension of Black Mesa, but its own entity. As you make your way through Delta Base, you are greeted by Dr. Diana Hayes, who acts as the main secondary character, as well as offering the mod's story dialogue and communicating to you what your next goals are. You'll often encounter her trying to survive and making her way out of the main base as well, and seeing her often indicates that you're up to the next part of the mod and making progress. I like her character. Yeah, it doesn't sound like a professional voice actor, but I think it adds to the charm of the character, as well as the overall charm of the mod. The voice acting reminds me of other Half-Life mods that had voices outside of the base game scientists and security guards.
We've experienced an interdimensional resonance. Our sensors detected the anomaly moments before. I believe that the experiment at Black Mesa might be caused some interference with our teleportation equipment.
Set in the year 2000, as is evident from the calendars, you'll also see early on that it is parallel to the events of Half-Life. I never did pinpoint the year Half-Life actually takes place. In the instruction manual, it mentions classified documents from the early 2000s, but I always assumed as a kid that it took place the year the game was released. In other words, 1998. You know, when The Undertaker threw mankind off Hell in a Cell and plummeted 16 feet through an announcer's table.
How interesting.
Also, just for fun, I might throw in a random reference from the year 2000 here and there throughout the video. Oh boy, here we go. Remember when computers were transitioning from beige to black? I like how the tech reflects the time period. Well, I mean, maybe we had teleportation technology back then and didn't know about it. Who knows? But then you have this magazine with the Bionic Woman remake on it. From 2008. We can pretend it was a time anomaly. Jokes aside, I love the level of detail in this mod, and I honestly feel it's one of the mod's biggest strong points. Some of the environment and texture work feel like they pushed the Gold Source engine to its full potential. Kinda reminded me of the level of detail in Condition Zero when compared to, say, well, Half-Life. A lot of these environments look somewhat cozy as well. Once you ignore the blood and bodies littered around the rooms, it gave me that gold warm feel that I mentioned in my first video, where the interior level design looks extra cozy on the Gold Source engine. These environments feel livable, and feel like genuine work conversations happen here, like, why do we all have to wear these equally ridiculous ties? Or how incredibly good the Mission Impossible 2 soundtrack is. I mean, I liked it. And you get that consistent feeling with Delta Particles level design, feeling familiar but fresh at the same time.
Hello there.
Some of the other sections also had wonderful lighting and atmosphere, like the first time you go outside and are greeted by chilling winds or rain.
Attention. All security officers, should take urgent action.
Can't fight the moonlight. Or in some of the interior segments where they played the horror theme really well, like you're in a scary movie. Another thing I noticed early on were the loading screens, or lack thereof. There were a lot of segments with detailed environments where I'd be expecting another loading screen to come soon, but it came much later on so I could keep rolling. I'm not too familiar with the Gold Source engine outside of playing with the Worldcraft level editor back in the day, but I was impressed. I remember making a large house map when I was a teenager, and the frame rate would end up emulating a PowerPoint presentation. I'm pretty sure I have that map saved somewhere on a floppy disk. The mod also boasts some new weapons, some of which will be very familiar, while others being nice surprises. Most weapons also have secondary features as well, and some of them are slightly different to how they are in Half-Life. The pistol, for example, still looking like a Glock, has an alternate firing mode that somewhat resembles the burst fire mode in Counter-Strike. The shotgun now no longer has a double shot feature, but has a secondary semi-auto firing mode, sorta like the real-life SPAS. The semi-auto firing mode is of course quicker than the pump action mode, but it does slightly less damage. I noticed it took 4 pump action blasts to take down a bull squid, but 5 with the semi-auto mode. You also get a submachine gun with a secondary suppressor mode, which seems to decrease the fire rate for silenced shots. Not like the enemy AI is that clever with sound to begin with. And you get the M4 with grenade launcher, which has a smaller clip than the subby, but packs more of a punch, and is probably my favorite weapon in the mod, and my last resort. There are so many other weapons to test out too, and each of them feel punchy, and some of them work best for certain types of enemies or scenarios.
10%.
The overall flow of the chapters move quite nicely. Just when you feel a segment starts to drag on a bit, it then transitions into a new segment that breaks up the gameplay, as well as often breaking up the scenery as well. For the most part anyway. We'll come back to that later. The mod is broken up into 4 chapters, each with their own unique setting, as well as each chapter focusing on another part of the story. I also felt like the mod was quite lengthy too. The mod could be beaten in about 3 hours, but honestly it took me much longer as I took my time with it, exploring every nook and cranny and soaking it in. The length honestly felt like it could compete against Blue Shift. Heck, I didn't even get to the final chapter until the 6th day. I felt conflicted playing this mod. I was happy that it was still going, but at the same time I was looking forward to finishing it so I could write this review. The set pieces and combat sections are tightly designed too. I never felt like a segment was overly bullshit, and in segments where there were a lot of enemies, namely the aliens spawning in, there was always enough cover and plenty of weapons to fight on. I played this on hard and it was fine. Meanwhile, that Halloween mod I played in October was crazy hard on easy. If at first you don't succeed, then dust yourself off and try again. Another addition which I thought was cool is the modded gore. Certain weapons will make enemies explode more violently than in the base game, and there's even decapitations with headshots. Bye bye bye.
I'll tag him, you bag him.
Now before I do an overview of the entire mod, I'll go through the pros and cons. The pros of this mod are easy to see when playing. The environments are visually stunning. Whether it's going through a rundown facility, inside and outside, or you're in Zen, which arguably looks nicer than the vanilla Zen we got in Half-Life, this mod offers very aesthetically pleasing environments. I even like some of the backgrounds too. I'm not sure if Half-Life 1 had capabilities for background elements, like in Half-Life 2, but it definitely looks like what is in play here. It makes it look more like a sprawling environment, and less like you're floating through space. The skyboxes too looked incredible, especially with the high resolution textures. The combat sections for the most part also felt fun and well designed, most notably fighting the soldiers. Coupled with the level design, these encounters were quite memorable. A nice memento, if you will. quick, you're losing them. I also like how certain items or mandatory doors were highlighted. Often I'd play a mod where there are keycards or other items that exist outside of the base Half-Life, and unless it's somewhat stated, I would gloss over it thinking it was just decoration. In Delta Particles, it highlights when you need a specific item to progress, or warns you of a mandatory door. In other words, needing a character to open it. But I like how the secret doors don't tell you anything, which leads me to my next like. Secrets. This game has many little secrets and Easter eggs, as well as achievements for replayability. I don't think I even saw half of them, but it was fun finding them. Finally, the soundtrack to this mod is really good, playing into the horror elements and action sequences quite fittingly. This I promise you. Now we'll talk about a few of the cons. As mentioned before, a lot of the segments never overstay their welcome. That is until you reach the final destination. Final chapter. The final chapter had some great moments, like the perfect storm, or floating on a radioactive asteroid. But a lot of the combat sections didn't feel as great as it did in the previous chapters. I think it's hard to make a level where fighting these flying assholes is fun. I swear they became my kryptonite in this chapter. Also, I understand the difficulty needs to increase, but I felt the last part of the mod at times was not particularly fun, and required memorization of where the enemies spawn to beat that segment. At least your arsenal is at full capacity by this point, but I honestly feel like this segment would have worked better as a co-op scenario or something. There's no real other con that I can think of. The set pieces were fun, and a lot of the moments had callbacks to Half-Life as well, which I thought was nice. If there's one thing that I wish I would have seen more of, however, is more like the Zen Hurricane, in terms of seeing things that I've never seen before in a Half-Life mod. But I understand there's always going to be limitations, but I gotta tell you, I really enjoyed this mod. So, with that in mind, is Delta Particles worth playing and checking out? Absolutely. If you're a Half-Life fan, or if you have an interest in playing this mod standalone, then I definitely recommend to give it a try. It's quite lengthy for a mod of this sort, but I recommend taking your time with it. And if you're worried about it getting difficult in the later half of the mod, there is no shame in playing on easy. As mentioned before, you can get it on Steam, and it's completely free, and it comes with a whole bunch of achievements if you're an achievement hunter, and is very easy to install and start playing. It does require that you have Half-Life, which I assume most of you watching already have, but if you don't, it's quite cheap on Steam and is very often on sale. So, with all that said, do check out Delta Particles if your curiosity gets the better of you, and be sure to stay after the credits as well. The fact that for the most part, this mod was made by just one person is truly incredible, so thank you for making such an awesome mod. Thank you ever so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then please don't hesitate to like, comment and subscribe, and check out some of my other videos on my channel. Thank you again, and I'll see you all next time. Darude Sandstorm.